Hi guys, welcome back to the Lost Generation podcast. So for today's episode 7, we actually have a little change of plan just last night, and we decided that it would be best if we talk about the George Floyd protests happening right now in the United States, as well as pretty much around the world. And joining us once again, back-to-back episode, is our friend Chau. Chau actually studied political science in college in the US. We thought that she could help us bring a lot of perspectives to the matter. What do you think about the situation in general?
Yeah, so when I was in Australia, I did follow politics in general, but most of the time I think I would look into like the Australian one more so because, like at that time I was living there, and the protests right now, like the George Floyd protests, has a lot of correlation between like the dynamic between the white Australians and also the Aboriginal Australians, which to me I find it really interesting because they are doing Black Lives Matters in Australia as well, but also, like a mismatch of Aboriginal movement as well. I see a lot of peaceful protests about the Australia Day, basically, It's similar to like Columbus Day in the US, but basically the Aboriginal Australian, they don't want to celebrate a day of invasion in a way. They want to call it an Aboriginal Day. So there is a lot of correlation between Australia, racial tension, and the US. So that's why I think I'm really focused on the George Floyd at the moment. I think the first thing that I'm actually interested about the George Floyd protest is that in a way it is the breaking point of the hostility between the American people and its government in a way. Since Trump first came into office, you don't see that happen in the killings of all the African Americans by cops back in a few years, but now it's just becoming like a big thing that is happening all around the world, even in Australia, which I'm going to talk about later, but yeah.
One of the reasons that 2020 is a milestone for such a movement is because it's the election year. We're seeing potentially new promising candidates. We're seeing potential changes in the system, but also people who see that nothing will be changed regardless of who would be in office.
Yeah.
So it is an accumulation of frustration, anger, hope, and many other factors as well. I mean, you can say that the United States was built on racism and other problematic issues as well when it comes to indigenous people, black people, and immigrants in general. Imagine a country that was built literally based on that, those issues.
Yeah.
One day things will explode, and I think 2020 is the perfect timing for that, perfect quote unquote. Also with the COVID-19 going on, there was some sort of mistrust of the people with the government that it's practically failing to protect its citizens.
Yeah.
The death rate of COVID-19 in the United States is still rising, and some really blame the government for its incapacity. Some are also having conspiracies towards, the CIA knowing what is going on in China, but refuses to take action. Others are also criticizing governmental funding that allocates a lot to military instead of health or just welfare for the people in general. So I think 2020 is a breaking point for a lot of countries in the world.
Well, yeah. I think like the protest starts out for numerous reasons, not just because of the Black Lives Matters.
Yeah, I can say that, but it doesn't take away the fact that it was black people who are the center of this movement. We have to give the credits to them, not just the American people in general. And the black issues in America are still a few of the most fundamental and burning issues of the country right now.
What fascinates me is that during that event, you can totally see an Asian cop standing beside, the white cop as well. And you have to remember that the police force also consists of not a majority, but like a percentage of black cops as well. So that's why I think to me, this is not just about like the Black Lives Matters, but also about, like how the American people, like Joe has said before, it just kind of had enough of the American government and particularly the Trump administration. Because I think I was one of the few ones who actually said maybe give Trump a chance. He's like a Trump card, basically, a wild card during that election. I'm not particularly fond of Hillary Clinton. Well, sure, she's a politician. She can, maybe in an alternative like history, maybe she can do well. But well, this is our current present time. So during that time, I say maybe just give him a chance. What he said about immigration, I don't particularly going to say I agree to all of his like tactics or even ideas, but it's kind of fair to say that immigration should be tightened in a way. I mean, you can disagree with me totally, but it's just what I'm trying to say.
So I think the basic problem here is that you have a white supremacist institution. It doesn't matter if the participants are Black or Asian, Hispanic. If you have a white dominant institution like that, that institution is going to be violent towards Black people. That is the main problem. There's also another issue I want to touch upon is the model minority myth. Among minorities, Asians do better in terms of socioeconomic levels, educational levels, etc. Yeah. And there's also the sense of supremacy within the Asian community in a lot of white dominant countries that they are the better minority race.
Like the token minority in a way.
Yeah, the kind of the token minority that prove the United States is the land of opportunity, is the land of the free or whatever. Yeah. And that cop, that Asian cop, I think is one of the representation of the fact that minorities can hurt each other as well, and especially Black folks. Basically, it's not just white versus Black people at this point. It's every race versus Black people.
Yeah, if you give them like a sense of superiority in a way.
Yeah, in a white dominant institution, like I said before. So it doesn't matter. You can still hurt Black people. It's just like what happened to our country. You see Vietnamese people hurting each other once they have the power granted by the French colonial government or the American government. We hurt each other as well. So sometimes when it comes to ethnicity and race, what matters more is the overall system. It's not just the participants in it.
Yeah.
I actually found out about this after watching the Netflix series called 100 Humans. Basically, they gather 100 Americans and they do a bunch of experiments together. And there was this experience where they need to hold a gun, and when someone with a gun jump out of the tree or something, they need to shoot that person. But if that person is holding a phone, then they're innocent. They cannot shoot that person. In the final round, there was a white guy and a Black guy holding a phone, jumping out of a tree. And almost everyone pointed their gun at the Black guy and shoot. So, that shows that they're subconsciously racist. And what's even worse is that the Black guy was actually the director of that show. Like, they know that guy. That moment, they just shoot him.
Yeah.
There was Asian and Hispanics, and also African American as well.
Yes, that ties back to the point that we discussed previously, that it's about other ethnicities versus Black people. It's not just about white versus Black anymore.
Yeah. It's also about like the inner stereotypes that they have, maybe from the media or even from the situation that you see in America. So do you think like one of the main proponents is that maybe giving someone too much superiority makes them be racist towards even their own races, right? Which is, to me, I think is interesting.
Yeah, when it comes to police brutality, the American government, it's not giving enough regulations when it comes to what police can do. You don't see cops carrying, weapons in Vietnam, do you? Like, you barely see cops or securities with just loaded gun ready to point at you.
I think like a part of that is also because like the police union is quite powerful in America, right? Like they can protect pretty much anything and any actions that a police officer would do to you. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but
there's also a lack of training. The American cops don't require as much training, education as many other countries in the world. They don't require rigorous training to deal with very stressful situation. And when it comes to the racial power, like you said, you give these cops who are predominantly white with probably some sort of racist thoughts in them, very subtle, but they were brought into that world. They were given an open firearm, and in stressful situations without proper training, they are given the power to just basically shoot anyone that they consider a dangerous target.
Right, yeah. I think one aspect that we gotta talk about is also the gun violence culture in America. You know, like if you are a police officer, and I'm not standing by the police officer in this case, but I'm just saying when you go into a lower income neighborhood where and I'm sorry to say, but predominantly, you know, African Americans areas, and the fact that, you know, you can literally buy a gun pretty much everywhere without license, I think kind of gives police officer like a hall pass in a way for them to use firearms. So it's a complex matter to me, and I don't know about you, but
I mean, the cops need guns to defend themselves.
Well, yeah.
But I think what is enraging people right now is that these black folks are being killed or doing nothing to threaten the cops. They're kids. They're pregnant women, older women.
Yeah.
They're, you know, or young men walking around, and just any very casual situations that do not pose any threats to the cops at all. That shows the lack of training.
Yeah.
That shows a systematic flaw that basically allows them to firearm on anybody without proper reasons.
Yeah.
So that's what enrages people. Not the fact that the cops are allowed to carry guns or that they shoot someone.
And it actually kind of relates to like the racial tensions in Australia. They have a certain stereotypes marked on them, and there is actually like not redlining like America in a way, but there is like a zone for Aboriginal Australian, and people just assume that it's dangerous in a way. That zone is Redfern in Sydney. I don't know about Melbourne, but
I think the thing about those neighborhoods is that it's just a vicious cycle. Like you're in a lower income neighborhood, so you cannot get a good education, therefore you cannot get a good job, higher paying jobs. So you have to do like bad things in order to just survive.
Yeah, and instead of trying to change that, we blame them for those crimes, and a lot of people even say that they rotten our society. You know, I don't want to say that these people are victims, but in a sense they are, right? The system fails these folks while they're supposed to support them.
But what do you think about like the Rodney King situation in 1996? I think like there was also like the racial tension between Asian and African Americans as well, because I think it also stems from the fact that I think an Asian owner actually shoot down an African American kid because he just assumed that he was robbing the place.
Yeah, I think anti-blackness within the Asian community is not talked about enough.
Yeah, even here though.
In Asia.
When I hear about my parents say about the protests, I'm just like, I'm gonna get out of here. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know that's again a lot of factors. We learn a lot from the white Americanized media, don't we? What we know about the United States is this, you know, white suburban image, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe big city, New York, whatever.
Yeah. Even here though. You know, like when you consider like a foreigner in terms of the Vietnamese, you think about like a white dude with blue eyes, you know, and he must like speak perfect English or something, but like we don't say that to, you know, an African American or even an Aboriginal Australians.
I think the domination of the media that was very specifically created for the white folks is one. Lack of education on race in general in countries like ours. We're pretty homogeneous. Homogeneous is when, you know, you don't have a lot of different races or ethnicities within your country. You can name some like China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. We don't learn about race, or if we do, I think we are offered a very bubbly experience. Like, oh, we're such a diverse country, and we have different.
Very general, like.
Very bubbly, energetic, and very positive terms when it comes to ethnicities. We don't learn about racial tension.
So why do you think, like, for the Asian community in America, for example, why do they so believe that they are more successful than the African American community, though?
I think, again, back to the vicious cycle, the Asian community were given more educational chances.
Yeah.
According to my experience, the culture of prioritizing education since early childhood is also another factor. But this is a very dangerous thing to say, because you cannot assume that other cultures don't care about education, right? I just think that there are some theories around this. I mean, you can take it with a grain of salt. I believe that the Asian Americans were given more opportunities to rise. They were like the token, like you said, the token minority, besides seeking justice for the victims of police brutality. The movement itself also wants to defund the police. Yeah, so basically they think that funding for the police right now basically is really huge. NYPD has millions or billions of dollars even in their budget.
Yeah.
If you're not aware, it's like a paramilitary police force. They have tanks, they have weapons, like very modern weapons beyond our imagination of what cops can be having. And what people are proposing is that you defund the police and you allocate that to the community, maybe some sort of community managers, social workers, basically systems that can support the people instead of terrorizing and policing the people. That's one of the idea. What do you guys think about this?
No, I think it's actually a good measure to kind of de-escalate the situation right now. But do you actually think it's going to happen, I guess? Again, I think like it's too soon to tell, about the movement. But it's getting the voices all around the world. I know that. But in terms of like legislation and bills, maybe it's just too soon to tell, but I don't know.
It will take a long time, but it sparks the conversation already. And I mean, so far we've seen one state in the United States, Minneapolis, they actually announced the intent to defund the police. I mean, specificity of this, we are not yet to know, but that is, I think, a very big achievement from the movement that we're seeing.
Yeah, and from the state that George Floyd was killed, so... Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's symbolic as well, but I think we're hoping for more than just some sort of symbols or token actions.
Yeah, because right now I think like besides of the United States, but for Vietnam specifically, I think like when we talk about like this protest, a lot of people kind of just draws into like the lootings and also like the negative aspects of the riots, and to me, it's not the way to kind of look at it. You have to look at it in a big picture in a way. And what do you guys think about that shit?
I don't think that they really look into the matter.
Yeah.
They just like follow a certain trend that they think they're showing their empathy and showing that they actually care about what's going on in the world.
And also like the racial stereotype as well, like...
Yeah, a lot of people looting were white, by the way.
Well, yeah, fucking Jake Paul, right? Like that fucking guy.
Like you said, looting is a very small part of the movement. The movement was actually very well thought out. The organizers are not a bunch of riots. They have grounded theories. I see a lot of theories flying around, educational resources. It's a very thorough movement. It is not just marching the street and looting stores.
And it's an organization as well, so it's not just like random people and go out and screams, and I think like a part of having riots is that looting is a collateral damage in a way, It happened in the French Revolution as well. Pretty much any revolution out there.
I think people focus on looting because the entrenched idea of private property inside our mind, that it has to be respected. It has to... It's like a very sacred thing. We get upset when something gets robbed, when people don't pay for things, when people take things away for free. So it shows a very fundamental issues of our society right now. What is our priority? Private property being robbed or people being killed. Like, what upsets you more? It says so much about your morality. So maybe that's something we should really think of.
And I have seen like videos about, like black owners, calling out about, the Black Lives movements in general, about like how looting is not the way to do it, because I think like in that video, it is the African American community looting these African American owners from having an income. So I think it's legit to care about the property, but also you have to think about the racial tensions as well. But it's kind of sad though, like seeing those videos and people just begging not to be robbed. To me, I mean, I don't know, So it brings me like a mixed feelings in a way about this whole situation, even though I get like the initial idea.
Yeah, I mean, it like I said before, it's priority. It's not, maybe it's not about what is the best solution, but sometimes you have to choose the something that's not worse, I guess, unless there are two evils here. But not to say that there are evils or whatnot, but yeah, I don't feel comfortable talking about robbing as much, especially when you rob small businesses. I don't feel bad about corporates or whatsoever.
Well, yeah, just like random convenience stores, man.
Yeah,
like,
no,
they
that makes me uncomfortable as well, and I really, really wish that did not happen.
Yeah, and it's not like we are brushing it off. I'm just, like you said, like the priority should be set straight in a way. But yeah, I feel really bad for like small owners. And again, when riots happen, pretty much anything will go down. And unfortunately, looting is one of them.
I heard a lot of criticisms toward the movement being violent. The idea of peaceful protests appeal more to the mass because we don't have to involve any sort of killing or vandalism or anything like that.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Why didn't the Black Lives Matter movement just choose to be peaceful?
I think again, like the George Floyd killing is like the combination, like you said before, of like various of complex matters happen in the United States. It became like a breaking point, and people have to kind of raise their voice in order to spread the message. Although violent, but I think it's necessary at this moment because right now, people just kind of tired of the administration. They just want some voice that can speak out, and because I think like a lot of people compare it to the Hong Kong protests, where I mean like it's the two different beasts, it's not the same. One is more about like fighting for the sovereignty, and one is about raising a voice. And to raise a voice, you have to do every measures.
I would kind of correct the statement a little bit. I'd say both are trying to raise their voice, but one is about racial justice within the country, and the other one is more about autonomy of Hong Kong, which is very complex. And we should not compare protests like that, not knowing where they stem from, because these two stem from completely different
grounds. Yeah. For the Hong Kong one, I think like they have to protect their property in a way because they want to show to the Chinese is that this is our territory, this is our property in a way.
I mean, we are comparing two very different causes here. The Hong Kong people are trying to protect the status quo of being autonomous versus the African Americans trying to uproot the status quo. These are completely opposite cause, in my opinion. So again, you cannot compare violent protests, lump them together, and just pretend like they are the same. There are so many different aspects of protesting in general. We need to really look into the roots of them.
Yeah, I mean Hong Kong wants to protect the status quo, but also kind of a little bit uproot it a little bit. They not just want autonomy, but also sovereignty as well. And in order to do that, they have to kind of protect their property, to showcase to the world that, this is their land in a way. So again, I really agree with you that, like riots happen for different matters and for different reasons, and how it turns out, will be different as well. So don't compare, maybe study it, learn about it, and see why did it happen and why did it happen that way. In a way, I think like every movement starts off with a really pure cause. It just what people take from it is the matter in a way. Some people take it really like well thought, like they do it really in the right way, but some people they're just going to take advantage of it, and it sucks, but it's a part of the human nature, I guess. People take advantage of things. People prioritize on the wrong thing as well. Yeah.